right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ask a Pro episode number 13. You all probably know my name is David Donahue, and I'd like to get nerdy and kind of dive into some wonderful topics that I really am interested in. And this is one that I have been looking forward to since Roy and I have been talking. So Roy Asi is a certified energy and analyst, and he's going to kind of help clarify a bunch of stuff that I've been kind of curious about. So, Roy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me over. Happy to help with the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if anybody is on for the first time, or you're with us now, or you're going to be watching this recording in the future, we basically keep this somewhat non-promotional. We're not going to talk about our companies or do a lot of advertising. This is pretty much all about education, and we want to do that. Some of the social media platforms that this will be posted on, you'll definitely be able to get a hold of Roy. We'll have his email address, the websites, and the same thing for my companies. You'll be able to get in touch with us. If you are on the How to ADU Facebook group, send a direct message to myself. If you want to get a hold of Roy, I'll be able to make sure that I can make that happen. But as again, we really want this all to be about content and learning and understanding what it takes to kind of build an accessory dwelling unit, because these things are fantastic, but they're complicated and they're a lot of work, right?
Right. It's it gets pretty complex as you delve into the energy code on the side of the ADU, on the design side of things. So it'd be a good introduction today to understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I'm Seinfeld. So you're a Lakers fan?
Yeah. Been a Lakers fan since, 2008. We were pretty good then, we became bad. Now we're okay again. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a ride as a fan.
Yeah, it has been. So thank you for that aside, because I wanted to call out your hat because I really like that. So Title 24, that's the energy codes.
Yep.
So when you do a plan set for your accessory dwelling unit, and you're submitting it, and it's going to be a traditionally built stick construction, or it's going to be a panelized or kit or prefab, whatever it is, but as long as it is going to be compliant to the California building codes, you have to have also, it has to be energy, it has to meet all of these states' energy efficiencies regulations. Am I saying that correctly?
That is correct. And to be specific, it would be part 6 of the Title 24 Energy Code.
Thank you for that. I had not heard part 6. Part 6. So we have the plans. You have all of the energy efficiency issues, and so that can all be submitted to and I should say, once it's submitted, all of the calculations for Title 24, because this is something I really didn't know about, they're taking the energy efficiency of all of the appliances that are within the ADU. So whether you have, we wanted to use an electric, we wanted to be all electric. And so right now, the only hot water heater that's available that we can use as an electric is an electric hot water heat pump. And those things are pretty darn big. They're massive. So I find that was interesting. We also went with a heat exchanger for our whole house fan. So that has a different rating. And so there's just other sort of appliances that we have that it's going to affect ultimately, that we've changed from when we originally submitted our plans. So let's say because I'm waiting for my final in, let's say, a month and a half, am I going to get somebody to do a HERS certification? And can you kind of talk about when someone such as yourself would come in and check out a project?
Yeah. So there's a couple processes to the inspection side of things, or when HERS rater, CALGreen inspector, or certified energy analyst were to come out to your project. In the circumstance of the ADU, for example, they could be out there anywhere from the framing stage, the insulation stage, or even all the way up to the final stage, pending what your Title 24 has for HERS measures. And just to emphasize what HERS testing is home energy rating systems. It's a matter of a subset of the energy code that says, here are the standards. A HERS rater confirms X, Y, and Z from there, such as your insulation or any mechanical equipment for your HVAC system, water heater, or even the kitchen range hood nowadays for the 2019 energy code. So overall, you may see a HERS rater, again, just to reiterate, from early on all the way up to the final.
So I have a 734 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and we're doing a full GC build, and he's handling all of those things. When would be the best time to kind of reach out to someone such as yourself?
I would say the best time to reach out to someone, for example, like a HERS rater, or even for Title 24. Let's start off with Title 24.
Please.
For Title 24, if you already have the plans from the architect, you have the builder on board, you guys are planning on building the ADU, then we need to be incorporated into the project very early on during the design phase. The reason being is Title 24 is a matter of checks and balances. So in order to understand exactly what you want to do with the project, your project goals, as well as what the architect and designer wants to implement, the Title 24 consultant needs to be able to balance that out with the energy code. Moving forwards from that, as soon as you get your permits, the time you want to reach out to the HERS rater, pending, for example, if you have QII, which is the installation inspection, you want to get them early on in the process as well. I would say even before you start framing, they will be able to give you the guidelines of what are the requirements for QII. Do we have to air seal? What type of air barrier we have for the house wrap? Do we need to insulate our headers? How should we insulate the project? And so on and so forth. So I would say very early on both sides, for both design and during construction, you should get both a Title 24 consultant and a HERS rater on boards.
Got it. And is that something that is included with the plans as they're submitted, or before they're submitted? Or is this something that once the construction is started, we're just kind of making sure that the builder, or let's say the homeowner, is following all the regulations correctly? Like you said, putting on a barrier. So let's say I have my plan set, I've submitted it, I'm about and then let's say I've got my permits in hand. So all of my Title 24 compliance components are within that plan set.
Correct.
So let's start there, and then now we're meeting with the general contractor, and we've excavated the footings, we got the metals in, we got the concrete poured, got all the utilities stubbed out where they're going to be, and we're about to start framing. Now, is that a point where we can say, hey, or is it after the framing's up and after the sheathing is on the exterior, and then the trusses are already built and we have the sheathing on that? Is that a particular point to say, hey guys, let's make sure that we're using the right materials?
I would say even before you start the framing, it would be a great idea to have the HERS rater on boards and try to contact an individual that could help you with that. The reason being is within the Title 24 reports, it does not specifically describe what QII may be. Not every project's going to have QII, but in the case that your project does have QII, it's not specifically written out within the report. So a HERS rater would be able to explain it to you step by step through the CalSearch or Cheers handbook and the CEC handbook of, these are the items we're going to be inspecting. Let's go ahead and try to use X, Y, and Z materials in order to meet these requirements. So I'd say very early on, is like I said, before you start framing, it'd be a great idea to at least talk to some HERS raters, get them to take a look at your Title 24 and see what the requirements are for your project.
Okay. And what does QII stand for?
QII is Quality Insulation Installation. It's a little bit of a mouthful, and it's a hard process to understand. To say the least, there's 3 different sections within the energy code that pretty much commingle and say the guidelines for QII. it all doesn't make sense to the general consumer. So having the HERS rater read you and walk you through each guideline is the best route to do it, because each code section for QII kind of contradict one another if you're reading it from the outside in. It's a convoluted process.
Of course, some bureaucrats probably put it together.
Yeah.
Or some sort of people that have no interest whatsoever in making things easy to understand.
Yeah, and it becomes harder, and that's why I suggest having the HERS rater or Title 24 consultant come on board. It makes your life a lot easier as long as your understanding of how the process is.
And this is so for general contractors, which is the way that we decided to go, a full bill. I call it full build general contractor. We just said you handle all the subs,
Right?
and you handle all, get everybody in. So for us, we have not or did not and have not. Maybe they've been here, but we have not consulted with a HERS rater. Maybe the general contractor is doing it. Maybe something else happened. But I would think that particularly if people are looking at doing any part of the construction themselves, acting as an owner builder, this is where it really, really becomes critical.
Exactly.
Full build general contractor relationship, they're 100% responsible.
I would say a lot of the times, like a full build general contractor, they're more than likely aware of what the requirements are, and they have a specific HERS rater they like using, and they've been educated of what the process is. If you're looking into your project as a owner builder, then it would be great to just keep your ducks in a row and get some education on what the requirements are. That way there's nothing missed, especially because if we get to the final and the building inspector says, hey, get X, Y, and Z done, such as the HERS test, and we missed it during the framing stage, now there's no way for us to come back. So it becomes very difficult to do so.
Right. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people miss, very likely when they're looking at doing certain projects themselves. And which is why I think this is important to really kind of talk about and identify, that. And so if you're watching this now, and I know there's a few of you here, thank you for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at this recording a little bit later, this is why, an accessory dwelling unit, it's a little bit smaller. They're cute little casitas, for your grandma, grandpa. Mine is going to be for my father-in-law. And you might think it's pretty simple, but there's a lot of complexities to it. And Roy just hit on one, which is like, if you go past a certain phase, you may be SOL and just sitting there going, what do I do? So what does a person do in that situation where they're like, oops-a-daisy?
Well, a lot of the times when I've experienced a situation like that, where we missed out on something and we went past a certain phase, we then have to go back to the drawing board for the Title 24 and see what we can circumvent to go around this problem. As I mentioned earlier, Title 24, the actual energy reports that you get for permit submittal, it's a matter of checks and balances. The easiest way to take a look at it is that the California Energy Code says, here are your minimum standards. And from there, make it happen to where if we install a less efficient water heater, we can install a more efficient HVAC system to balance out the differences. So if we miss a phase, now we have to go back and say, oh, well, we might have to insulate more, add an ERV, or do something to make it happen, maybe a battery backup, which ends up costing the project a lot more money. And it's difficult to go back in that fashion.
Right. So as an example, and I think and I'm glad you did that explanation, which I thought was great. So if you miss something, let's say you put in a regular electric, well, I don't know, you can't even do that because the code doesn't allow you to do a regular electric hot water heater, because you would have, if I used a horribly inefficient standard electric hot water heater, not the heat pumps, which is the only one that qualifies if you want to go electric, then I would have to make up for the inefficiencies of that hot water heater with maybe even smaller windows or more efficient HVAC system. Or I'm looking at a bunch of different things to kind of really sort of simplify it. I mean, or to make it much more energy efficient. And that's what you're saying. If you had to really bump up the, let's say the SEER level, if I'm saying that right, on your HVAC system, it could cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
Exactly. Yep.
And I worry about a lot of people that they may be going into this thing somewhat naively, and that's why I love doing these. And they go into it naively with, well, I'm just gonna go get something cheap from one of the big box stores, not understanding that there's a whole rating that you have to kind of comply with, and you could get stuck going, oh crap, I wasn't, now I'm kind of behind the 8 ball, and I'm going to have to spend a whole lot more money. And I think it's fascinating that unfortunate, I shouldn't say fascinating, unfortunate that some people try to think that they're going to just do it and move ahead and, oh crap, I missed out on something. Mm-hmm. What is your experience when you're actually, talking to clients and you're talking to customers? What is the biggest misconception, or what is the biggest thing you kind of spend time really talking about with people?
Well, the biggest misconception that people have with Title 24 on the design side is you always touch on the electric water heaters. That's the biggest misconception, especially with these ADUs. Everyone knows that the heat pump water heaters are huge. No one really wants to install them because they're extremely loud. So when they tell me they're going all electric, I input a heat pump, then come to find out closer to the installation of the equipment, when they thought they were going electric, they bought a tankless electric water heater, and now we're back to the drawing board. So that's literally the only thing it's a reoccurring process almost every day, where we see an ADU, a homeowner builder asks, okay, well, can I put an electric assistance water heater in here? And then we have to reel them back in and explain again, here are the minimum efficiencies, we can't do that. And it delays the project quite a bit on their end.
Well, particularly if you have to build out a 3-foot by 3-foot closet when you were thinking you were going to mount it to the exterior wall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, we have, ours is 734 square feet, and we have a walk-in closet, and I was able to take away part of that walk-in closet for that, the electric hot water heat pump, which is a mouthful. Now, and yes, I've heard that they are noisy. And so I was actually looking at the decibel ranges that they produce, and they're kind of up there. So we are drywalling and insulating that closet. Mm-hmm. So it's drywalled on the inside, insulated in between the 2x4s, drywalled on the outside, of course. And somebody said for the straps that I should probably put some sort of rubber gasket. Yes. And whatever step. You're right. You're agreeing with me. So that is something to do.
Yeah, because the straps themselves, the metal straps around the tank for the heat pump water heater, it causes a lot of vibration. So when you turn on the water heater, those straps can end up vibrating, and because they're mounted, or they're essentially bolted onto the walls, that can cause vibration almost throughout the building, and you may feel that or hear it. So that's the downfall of the heat pump water heaters on these small units. You can look into Sandin, which has an outdoor condenser unit that is separate from the tank itself. They're a little bit
Was
quieter.
That the company name that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
What was it again?
It's called Sandin. It's spelled Sanden.
Sandin. Okay.
Yep.
And they have something that is meant for the exterior, or an exterior closet?
So you'll still need an exterior closet for the tank itself,
right?
But the actual condenser unit, rather than being integrated to the tank itself, it's separate from the tank. So now the noise is just open to the ambient temperature outside world, I guess you could put it.
Yeah. I had not even heard about that. Thank you so much.
It's a little more pricey than the regular. I think they're a couple $100 or $1,000 more. But it's an option to take a look at.
Sandin, and they have a 2-component electric hot water heat pump, taking that noisy component, putting it outside the closet to kind of help reduce that noise. So since I am not going that route and I'm going to be stuck with this, what other sort of recommendations? You said rubber gaskets on the attachment points. Is there, could I put anything down below it that would help it at all so that it doesn't vibrate on the concrete?
Well, I think mainly our concern is those straps, and also just making sure we're insulating
Yeah.
the living heck out of the surrounding area, just to make sure we don't have noise levels resonating through the walls. That's about the only ones that I would think of in order to, suppress some of that noise.
Okay, thank you for those recommendations. I really appreciate it. So let's go talk a little bit about HVACs, heating, ventilation, and cooling. I know that a lot of people with ADUs are doing mini splits.
Mm-hmm.
And just because, they can be attached or affixed to the main head, can be on the side wall. So there's no ducting taking up a lot of room in the ceilings, because again, most of these don't really have a lot of area that are,
Right.
that are in, because there's rafter systems. You might be able to do something. But the mini splits, am I correct to understand, are significantly more energy efficient than, let's say, a standard traditional, AC condenser, furnace and blower system that most people have in their house?
Well, there's two schools of thought on that, just because of furnace AC equipment nowadays are getting so much more efficient, that they're pretty comparable. I would say that the ductless multi-split heat pumps that we're talking about right now, they're far more efficient than your traditional box unit heat pump that you're talking about, like a single big ducted unit, just because we get higher HSPF, which is your heating side performance factor for the heat pump, as well as a higher searing air value for the ductless units. That's a great way to take a look at it. Also, we don't have any thermal losses since we don't have any ducting. So I guess you could say they're a little bit more efficient.
One of the things that we decided to go with, and really caused us a lot of delays, is we didn't want to have a head mounted on the sidewall.
Mm-hmm.
And we were thinking that we might want to go to the ceiling, and that would be a cassette system.
Yep.
But since we have a little bit of a vault to ours, the mini split would had to have been level, and we would have had to have created a soffit around it.
That's correct.
As we were kind of considering what to do, our general contractor was not familiar with mini splits in any other configuration except on the side wall. And I'm like, come on, you have to be able to find something. You got to be able to do something. 2 months later, after trying to say we don't want it mounted on the sidewall and trying to find somebody, he finds a subcontractor that actually has a ducted mini split. So again, we happen to have the room in the ceiling area of the closet, but we lost 14 inches. So our ceiling was a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes it for a much smaller walk-in closet. So again, for folks who are watching now or watching it, the recording, there are options for your HVAC system. Ours, we wanted to go through, and I'll just share a little bit of an aside. We wanted to do the ducted mini split so that we could actually get some conditioned air into the bathroom, because this is going to be for my father-in-law who's 86. Even though I didn't really need to at 734 square feet, because I think I have like, I don't know, a 27 SEER unit. It's ridiculous. The whole thing was almost $16,000. And I'm just like, wow, these things are expensive. You don't have to go crazy, but if you do want a particular configuration, they are out there. You just got to ask. You got to be your own best advocate. And there's a lot of other things that are involved. So we talked about some of the biggest misconceptions, some of the things you have to explain to people. No, they do not have on-demand electric hot water heaters that meet the energy efficiency. Have you heard or seen anything in the communications within your industry that is indicating that there's going to be a little bit more practicality applied to the Title 24 Section 6? I mean,
Yeah.
if you have like a small little 300 square foot, ADU, it's like, come on, let's be a little bit more practical, particularly if they're going to go all reach with the reach codes or the new 2023 where everything has to be electric, and you have to have these massive units to be able to meet it. See, to me, there's some disconnect. So what can you share?
Well, there's light at the end of the tunnel. In the 2023, or I should say 2022 code coming next year and about 3.5 months from now, there's quite a bit of exemptions for ADUs that are really key to take a look at. Next year, we're going to be allowed to have some exemptions to allow for electric resistance water heaters. We're going to be allowed to use those tankless electric resistance water heaters. There are some caveats to it. We need to be at a point of use reference for the water heater. So essentially, if you have a 700 square foot ADU, you may look at a couple electric resistance water heaters that are under the sink. It's almost like the commercial style. They're a lot cheaper to do, and it's a lot more painless. The other key exception that I would say is the solar exemption. So ADUs may be exempt from solar as of next year, pending your minimum requirements. So for example, on a 500 square foot ADU, sometimes if you have a Title 24 requirement that is 1.8 kilowatts or less for your solar, then you can be completely exempt. So now we're talking about a total cost reduction of thousands of dollars.
Roy, you touch on something that I've been wrestling with for many months, which is the solar. Mine is a 1.64 requirement.
Yeah, so for next year, if that was in the case you submitted next year, now they allow us to take that exemption and say you don't have to put in any solar since you're below that threshold.
Yeah, because I was on a webinar with a bunch. Watching the webinar, and they had a bunch of the state's energy officials, and architects, and they were talking about how there's no exception to the solar requirement. I'm like, wrong. And because if you don't have the area, my understanding at the time, until you've enlightened me, is that the only exception to get away from the solar requirement is if there's not enough room on the ADU itself to put the solar panels, meaning you have to have the 3 feet around the perimeter of the roof line so the fire person can walk around. And if you have a skylight that's taking up some of that area and you can't put the number of panels on, then you're exempt.
That's correct. And also with the shading. So I believe it was if you have less than 80 continuous square feet of accessibility for solar, due to either tree shading or a man-made obstruction, then you don't have to put the solar. But that things are changing for next code cycle. So it's like, it's a good sign, and it's a good trajectory where the ADU industry is going.
And I agree with that 100%, because I think that, ADUs in your backyard are meant to be an affordable housing option. But some of these requirements, Roy, are anything but affordable. Even though the Biden administration has put out an additional incentive for solar down to, I think it's 30%. I think it's 30% now, or is going to be 30%. I think it's almost immediate. But the solar companies, 2 solar companies that I was talking to, both upped their minimum panel kits. I mean, I think it was like from 2 kilowatts to like 2.5 or something. Even though I only need 1.6, I'd be happy with 2. And it might even be like 3 kilowatts. And now I'm thinking to myself, that's the minimum size that the solar companies will come out that they're going to bid. And so, and my last bid with the discount was, gosh, $12,000.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, folks, this is just ridiculous. I mean, I understand it. It's energy efficient and it's so saving, but it's just like, why are you burdening homeowners that want to build things primarily? And this is the Turner Center out of Berkeley, says that the number one reason why people are building ADUs is for a parent or a family member.
Right.
And if you keep kind of stacking on all these kind of costs, it gets kind of, it gets hard. And I think that the part that, and I'm like going, I'm going to be doing some research on the, I forget what I need to ask you, say it again. The point of use. That's what it was. Point of use hot water heater. So that's something that's like underneath the sink in the kitchen or the bathroom, or maybe it's really close to the shower or something, where you turn it on and that heating system is right there.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, it doesn't have to be specifically under the sink. Well, the reason I said the option would be to put each water heater under the sink is because the point of use credit only allows you so much distance between the actual water heater itself and the furthest fixture that it serves. So the easiest option is to just lay out the water heaters in each water fixture that it's serving. Otherwise, then you have to take into the account on the design side, put the water heater in a centrally located area to where it feeds the rest of the water fixtures. If your bathroom's across the room from the kitchen and so on and so forth.
And are those being used? Are people using them now?
The electric resistance water heaters?
Yes.
Well, a couple years ago, I actually saw one being used for a new residence in Santa Rosa where they had a heat pump water heater as their primary. And because there's lag time for the heat pump water heater to actually deliver heat to the fixture, in their master bedroom, they added a electric resistance water heater for supplementary use so that by the time the heat pump water heater catches up, then it goes back. So they wanted instant heating. That's the only time I've seen that.
That's brilliant. Because I imagine with I'm going down a rabbit hole. You can't do like a whole house circulation system to kind of get the electric hot water heat pump to get the hot water to where it needs to go. So there is some lag time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's going to be good. I'm not going to tell my wife that.
Well,
keep that a secret.
if you have a large enough tank, you should have enough water in that tank to heat up for it to be quick enough to be able to serve that water fixture.
I think you've got 40 gallons, but you think 40 gallons, that's a standard size, but it's a one bedroom. It's going to be for one person.
Right.
So it kind of, anyway, I'm a broken record when I say that having to comply with the Title 24, Section 6 energy requirements for an accessory dwelling unit are just a little bit hard to understand now. But 2023, there are some changes.
Yep.
What else? Anything else that's going to be exciting? Because I'm totally jacked about the point of use credits, the electric resistant hot water heaters, and I just think that's brilliant. And also the solar panel exemption for things that are under 500, right?
It's not specifically for under 500 square feet. It's for projects that have the requirement of solar less than 1.8 kilowatts. Because that could be even for a 700 square foot project. It depends on your Title 24. And the way that the solar is calculated is depending on the factor produced by the CEC pending your climate zone, the size of the ADU, and the number of occupants. So there's quite a bit of factors to it. The easiest way is just to ask your Title 24 guy, is it less than 1.8? Can I get that exemption?
Okay. Exemption. Got it. Okay. Anything else that's on the radar as far as codes or energy compliance that you would want us to be aware of?
Well, there's also the DOE changes. I shed light on the good news. Obviously, there's going to be some hurdles along with those.
Here it comes.
Next year, there's also the DOE changes where they're upping the minimum HVAC efficiency requirements. So with that being said, you may see maybe a 20% increase, 10% increase in total cost of the equipment because of the DOE's changes. And that's at a federal level. So California is just adopting the federal level minimums. I would say those are the main items to take a look at for new construction ADUs and backyard ADUs that people are looking into constructing. Nothing else too crazy has changed for the next code cycle.
Okay, not much else. Okay.
And something did come to mind that is commonly missed. I think we were going over items commonly missed is the kitchen range hood requirements. It's a Title 24 requirement, which a HERS rater ends up having to go and do your testing for it. A lot of the times when a HERS rater goes out there and they say, oh, your kitchen range hood needs to be HVI or AHAM certified, then they go out to the manufacturer. Manufacturer always says, yes, we are HVI certified, but they're not on the product list. The problem with that is the HVI and AHAM only move. I always compare them to like the DMV. They can only move so fast because they're government work. So their list doesn't update as fast as what the manufacturer says. And that holds up the project. And the common misconception with that is people always think, oh yeah, well, I bought it from, it's a big company, they need to be HVI certified. And sometimes they're not. And then you have to end up replacing your kitchen range hood. And sometimes you're buying a $3,000 range hood from a fancy company, come to find out they're not certified, which is a big hiccup during the final.
That would be a big pickup, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of segues into something that ties into one of the questions I always kind of talk about involving architects, because architects tend to be viewed as a kind of a luxury item. You know, they're expensive. You know, you know, if you're doing something not really standard and you want to incorporate a really nice design, you know, architect is going to be the route to go, because they're going to spend a lot of time up front trying to find out what it is you're going to try to capture with your ADU.
Right.
Is my impression accurate that an architect is going to know that you need to have those compliance components that you just mentioned?
Yes. So the architect, you know, to say the least, you pay for what you get. The reason that architects are so much more expensive is because they know a lot of the code workarounds and what requirements there are, and they will clearly lay that out on the plans. To answer your question, yes, it's the architect always knows what the code requirements are for Title 24. They're well educated on it, and they usually clearly indicate it on the plans. It's up to the contractor and or homeowner builder to be able to reference those code sections and know, all right, these are the requirements we have to meet.
And I think that when you involve an architect, which I'm an advocate of, we kind of went a different route with a kit built panelized program, and then it eventually, you know, brought in a designer to kind of really help us kind of move through some of the phases of our work where we were really kind of getting held up. And I'm a very strong proponent of using an architect, because not only would they, as you said, identify those components that will qualify, but they're going to kind of shepherd to make sure that all of a sudden, if you saw this gorgeous thing at some wonderful showroom, you're going to very easily be able to say, hey, I like this, you know, hood vent. And it's like, yeah, I know it's $3,000, but it doesn't qualify. That architect is going to be able to kind of shepherd you through and not say, yeah, go ahead and order it.
Exactly. Which ends up costing you more money if you didn't know that from the get-go. Because who knows, you bought a $3,000 to $5,000 range hood, it doesn't work, then now you have to replace it with another $3,000 to $5,000 range hood.
And who knows how long that's going to take.
Exactly.
Well. And I think the lesson is that is making sure however you're getting your designs for your ADU, making sure that they do comply. And if there is going to be something that you're going to do in the future to change an appliance and change something different, I mean, goodness knows I did it several times, but luckily all of them had very high ratings. And so we were able to talk to people and say, hey, is this fine? And they're like, yeah, it is. So being very conscious of all of those things and involving a HERS rater someone who's certified to be able to make sure that the components that you're purchasing are not going to kind of push you out of compliance? Is that the way you would say it? Out of compliance, or is it out of rating?
I would say out of compliance, because ultimately at the end of the day, the HERS rater is inspecting items that are a part of the Title 24 compliance report. And if it deviates one bit from that, then you get pushed out of compliance.
Gotcha. For someone to engage someone like yourself, what does someone have to do? Do they say they give you a set of plans for you to review, and then you kind of say here, and then you enter into a contract? Because I've never hired a HERS rater or someone. So can you kind of walk me through and walk people through what it's like to engage someone such as yourself in the company that you work for?
Yeah. So from the very beginning, starting from the permitting stage, usually you guys would have a set of plans already drawn up, or you're engaging an architect, designer, or design build team, whoever it may be. From there, once those plans have been developed, that's when you try and start to reach out to your Title 24 energy consultant. They would be able to guide you through all the energy requirements and be able to clearly list out if there's any unusual HERS testing that needs to happen. That's when you start to engage the Title 24 folks. Once you complete the permitting stage, and now you're going into construction, I would say that's when you engage and start to talk to a HERS rater in order to scan through the reports and say, these are the requirements I need, and that's how you get into contract with them early on in the construction stage. So essentially, you're looking at two different processes for either one or two different companies, pending whoever you find out there.
Okay. And is there any idea of what the price ranges are, as far as, is it an hourly? Is it a project based? How are, like, the company you work for, how is that handled typically? And I know every situation is different.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you the whole gambit of things for how Title 24 works. I mean, for Title 24, you can get individuals ranging from $200 to $500, depending on which consultant you're working with. And ultimately, they base it off of a square footage project. So they'll say your project's 500 square feet or 1,000 square feet. It's going to be X amount of dollars. There's companies out there that have a flat rate fee depending on their system. It doesn't matter how big your project is. Sometimes they charge $400 from 100 square feet all the way to 10,000 square feet. So the range can vary for that. The HERS testing fee can also vary. That this is the bigger factor, that you won't know what the range is until you know the Title 24. You could have a project that has a HERS test that could cost maybe $300, or you can have a project that can have a HERS test that can cost about $1,000, depending on how many site visits your HERS rater has to do. And that mainly involves if your project has QII, which we touched on as the installation inspection. Most times the HERS rater has to go out there either once or twice during the rough-in, and then another time during the final. So looking at possibly 3 site visits to be about $1,000 for a typical HERS rater, maybe at worst case scenario.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And anytime, is it the HERS rater that would, if it was necessary, put on one of those things on the front door that kind of does that suction test, or is that completely unrelated?
Oh yeah, so the HERS rater would do that. It just depends, again, on your Title 24. That's the blower door test that you're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
It essentially just measures how much air infiltration we're getting throughout the building and how well sealed your building envelope is. Not every project's going to have that. I would say that's actually a rare occasion for a project to have it.
In what instance would it be required? Do you have any examples?
Yeah. So the blower door test could be triggered in 2 different ways. There's the first way of the traditional air infiltration. Your Title 24 guy needs compliance, so they punched in I need 3 air changes out of your project. That adds a huge cost, both just for HERS testing and for your builder, because now they're taking a lot of time to air seal and make sure your project will meet this. And the other way that the blower door could be triggered is the duct test in conditioned space. So with the duct test in conditioned space, ultimately it's checking how much of the air you're pumping in from your HVAC system is going to the outside. So
Right.
those are the only 2 tests, or 2 ways those tests are triggered.
And I think those are commonly done for older houses like what I'm in right now, built in like the late 1930s, where, sometimes I swear I can feel a draft coming in my electrical outlet on the wall.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of the times people use the blower door test as a part of an energy audit. It's a great tool for you to use to know exactly where air infiltration is coming in. You could even take a thermal imaging gun and look at all the cold spots throughout a house when you run the blower door.
So today is September 15th, 2022, and I am in Burbank, California. And we just got done with a massive heat wave. We had the heat dome of death parked over the 4 corners, and we were probably at about over 100 degrees for about a month, if not more.
Wow.
And it was we have probably a 12-year-old HVAC system, not that great. And our energy bills are $350 to $450 for electricity each month. And I was swearing that I was just really kind of complaining because at some point it's so hot for so long that the air conditioning system just can't catch up. And so you see the temperature climb, and so we were like 82 degrees inside. And the thing's been going on. The system's been going all day. So you mentioned the thermal gun, which is the forward-looking infrared, correct?
Yes.
So clear. Because I'm like, I want to figure out a way to kind of insulate this 1936 built home to kind of keep some of that heat out. I mean, and there has to be something. I have a small attic space, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about what mine is, but for ADUs is one thing. But they're going to be going behind your home. If you have an older home like mine, this is a good time. If you're going to be engaging a HERS rater, you might want to do a blower door test, because if you're spending the money to get this beautiful product, for your family member or for rental, and you have an older home, it may be something to consider, because there are a lot of incentives that I think are out or will be coming out as far as, kind of rebates that helps offset maybe improving the energy efficiency of your primary home.
Yeah, and I know of a rebate, especially in the Bay Area. It's called Bay Rent, that allows you to get money back pending how much insulation you put in the walls, new water heater, new HVAC, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and then that's what I was kind of touching on, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of got that out there, which is something people don't really, I didn't think about, like turf replacement programs, getting a little bit off subject. But when I was pulling my permits with the city of Burbank, no one said, hey, why don't you look at submitting for a turf replacement? Because when I did my initial calculations for us, if we get it, I don't know if we may not qualify. It was something like $4,500 that we would have been eligible for, only if I would have submitted that ahead of time. So looking at and looping it back into the topic, when you're looking at building your ADU and you are spending a couple $100 or more on your electricity during the summertime, think about what you may want to have done to your primary house, and if there's an option to do it. And I would think that most HERS raters, and not your general contractor, they're not going to know about the rebates. Talk to your HERS rater, and then also look online to see if there's anything you can do. I know that the federal government is definitely trying to increase the incentives, because if you look at it objectively, you have, an old house, to really retrofit it would cost tens of thousands of dollars. And they're trying to help where you can, because this is where the energy consumption is. I mean, I just mentioned it. I think our electric bill this month will probably be over $400. And we're just really kind of going through it with a very inefficient HVAC system that I know we can improve. But a new system, again, is really, really expensive.
Right.
So it's prohibitive. So I know we have just a couple more minutes left. I want to, if there's anybody that is with us now and you have any questions, anything related to energy, please, just kind of put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them. And if you're watching this recording, just, and there's something you want to know, put it in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to get back to you. And if it's something that's going to be for Roy, I will definitely pass it on to him. And if you guys want to get connected, I'll definitely provide his information so you can do that. So wrapping up, first of all, thank you for all of your time. I really appreciate it. I got a lot of good stuff that I'm like, okay, I got to, that's great. That's good information. I'm excited about it. But in kind of closing, what would you want to kind of leave us with?
I want to leave you with some more good news. I thought about it. I don't know if you guys have heard of the 45L tax credit. I know a lot of the ADUs are either being rented or sold, or maybe it's just for a family member. But in the case that it is a rental or you sell the ADU, you can get up to $2,500 as a tax credit once you sell the property. And most of the time your project's already on Cheers, and your HERS rater or your Title 24 guy will know that it could be pre-qualified. It's a matter of them just punching in their data, and then you get a certificate saying, here's your tax credit, you give it to your tax guy, and you get money back. Now, coming next year, they're changing it to become Energy Star certified and also all electric. A lot of the times these homes or these ADUs are super high efficient, as well as they're all electric. Now they're bumping up the tiers to be potentially up to $5,000. So there's money being brought back to you. So I thought that was good news to share.
That is, and what program is that?
That's the 45L tax credit.
So 45L, just the letter L, tax credit.
Yep.
Never heard of that, and that is fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that's great. Next year, 2023, maybe up to 5,000.
Yep, that's correct.
Wow. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Roy, I would love to have a conversation with you again. We're having an open forum panel opportunity in the future. Would love to invite you to that. I do have a couple questions. Thank you very much to Chris and Will for them. Let's go, because we have a few more minutes. Chris is asking, he would like to know about venting a hybrid water heater into an attic. Good idea? Is it allowed?
When you say, Chris, when you say venting, you shouldn't have much ventilation at all for your hybrid heat pump water heater, since there's no gas combustion for it. Could you clarify a little bit on your question on that?
Let's do this. Let's bump everybody up. He's probably typing, but in the meantime, I'm going to bring Chris in. So Chris, if you want to unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So not the gas that it wouldn't create since it's electric, but the cold air that it creates, cold air as waste. It kind of takes the hot air in and creates cool air.
Right.
Can you get that into the attic? Is that like a good idea at all to keep it cooler in the house?
Well, I haven't seen that at all. It actually sounds like a really good idea. I don't see why it wouldn't be allowed, because the heat pump, the purpose of the heat pump is to draw the hot air, hot ambient temperature from the surrounding environment that it's located in. So essentially, if you located it in the attic, that attic hypothetically should get cold over time, because the heat pump is drawing all the hot air out of it in order to put it into the water.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you ever seen that. I live in a place that has a water heater in the attic, like the actual unit, It's a big
Mhm.
tank, and I want to replace it with one of these heat pumps because it would like serve almost like, you know, as some passive air conditioner in a way.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
I haven't seen it applied in any of the construction that we've been working on, but it sounds like a great idea, and I don't see why not. It would be allowed. It wouldn't be allowed in the energy code or building code. I can get your contact information. I'll get back to you with any other contractor that I know that may have done it before. I think I have a couple in mind.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah. So if Roy in the chat, if you could kind of type your email address in, I think that'd be great because I know that that doesn't show up in the recording. Chris, that was a great question. Really appreciate that. And I know that we have a couple more here. Let's see. Will, chat is closed while we're at the top of the list. Yes, Will, thank you. He is definitely on top of that. Why do I have chat closed? So Will, if you're there and you're with us and you want to ask a question, you can unmute. I have activated everybody so that they can speak. Let's see. But he did Will's comment was that you were definitely on top of the Title 24 knowledge and what's going to be new. So he really appreciated your great resource. So
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. So in the chat, and thank you for the heads up on that, Will. I'm going to change that next time to enable it. But I do know that you can put in questions into the Q&A. Roy has put his email into the chat, so please do copy that, everybody. Would appreciate it. And Roy, we're just getting close to an hour, so I will wrap up. Would definitely love to have you on again. I think there's going to be some additional interest in it. And when we have our big open forum question, which we hopefully have dozens and dozens of people, it might be fun to have you on as well too. So I hope you can make that. So thank you, everybody that joined us. Really appreciate it. Chris, Mira, and to Will, thank you. And you guys have a great day.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.